Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to the Atheist Experience. We are live May 2nd. I'm your host, Ashley Perrien, and my co-host this week, Don Baker. Welcome back.
Hi, good to be here.
We are being sponsored by the Atheist Community of Austin, a nonprofit educational organization promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. We have weekly meetings every Sunday at the Crescent City Beignets, which is on 6th Street, a couple blocks west of Lamar. Those start around 11:30 or so, and go on typically till around maybe 1 o'clock or so, or thereabouts. Those are every Sunday, except for the third Sunday of the month when we have our lecture series at the Austin History Center on 9th and Guadalupe. The next one's going to be May 16th, and we have Thomas Van Orden coming in and speaking. He is the lawyer who brought suit against the state for, there's a Ten Commandments monument on the, I believe it's the south lawn of the Capitol building here in Austin.
No, it's the north side.
It's the north side, okay. On the north side lawn of the state building. They have Ten Commandments monument there. He made a suit to have that taken down. He lost. He went to the Regional Supreme Court, I believe. I'm not too sure of the exact details on the whole path of the case. I know I'm pretty sure it's being appealed right now. But he is going to be our speaker on the 16th and is going to be able to give us some updates on exactly what's been happening. He was a speaker about maybe a year and a half ago, something like that. He came on. And
his is one of several challenges of the Ten Commandments displays throughout the United States. So
exactly, throughout the United States, yes. These kind of cases
not just an isolated thing.
Yeah, yeah. So this is just one of many. And like I say, this is one of the very few that has lost. And they said it could stay up. Pretty much every single one that I've read has been where it says, no, that's not going to work, and take it down. So this is one of the very few, so that makes it kind of interesting. But anyway, like I say, on the 16th, he will be at the Austin History Center at 12:30. Our lectures start there. And he will be giving us an update on exactly what's been happening with that whole case. So again, that's May 16th at the Austin History Center on 9th and Guadalupe. Okay, as for regular things that we do, again, we've got the Sunday meetings. We also have Godless Gamers every Monday night at the house of Russell Glasser. And if you go to our website, atheist-community.org, we have a link there to our regularly scheduled events page, and you can get more information there on exactly what we have going on and how to get information and directions and such to that. But that's Godless Gamers every Monday night, starts around 7 o'clock, play board games, card games, that type of thing. And then on Thursdays, we have a happy hour at Antonio's Tex-Mex, which is on the southbound feeder of I-35, just south of 183. That starts again around 7:30 and goes until whenever they kick us out. So, also one more thing, every other Saturday, we have the Non-Prophets, which is an internet audio show. It's a streaming MP3 from atheistnetwork.com. The Non-Prophets is produced locally by the Atheist Community of Austin, hosted by Jeff D. and the producer is Russell Glasser. And pretty much anybody who else who shows up that day, they're usually on the show. It's usually news, analysis, and discussion with an atheist twist to it. It's a very lively show, definitely worth a listen to. And if you go to our website, again, atheist-community.org, and click on the Non-Prophets radio link, you can download about the last 2 or 3 months worth of shows on there. So that's every other Saturday from 2 until 3:30 at atheistnetwork.com. The next one, I believe, is going to be in a week, as in this upcoming Saturday from now, which I don't have the date on me, unfortunately. But actually, I think that's the 8th. I want to say May 8th is going to be the next show, I believe. So that is it for our normal announcements. One quick email that I think we can go over. We had a little discussion as to whether or not this was actually kind of entirely on topic, but we can go over it quickly and kind of just drop it down, see what happens. This is one, we have viewer email. tv@atheist-community.org. If you have any comments for this show, suggestions, topics that we could do, if you're hanging on the line at the end of the show, we didn't get a chance to take your call, then you can write us and we will respond to any emails that we get. And if there's something interesting about them, we'll bring them on the air and read them out. This one that we got was actually someone who had written in saying that they were the general question is, do you think a lasting boyfriend-girlfriend relationship can work between an atheist and someone who has a strong belief in God and values religion? Basically, atheist-theist religions or relationships, can they work? That was the basic crux of it there. I believe you replied to this one also.
Yeah, several of us replied to it.
Okay, yeah.
And we all had sort of different answers.
Yeah, a little bit different answers. The person who emailed actually said that most of the people they talked to said, no, it can't work out. But they kind of had the position on it as in, from the theist perspective, it can't work because the Bible says, don't go out with anyone who is not of your belief because they will damn you to hell.
Right.
Just because the Bible says so, then you shouldn't
shake your faith.
Then
that sort of thing.
It can't work out. Which just because a book says so, well, obviously we don't agree with that. My general idea on something like this, and I have talked about this with a couple other people in my past, is that it's something that can work, but it can be very difficult. And it mostly, I think, hinges on the fact that 80% of people out there typically are not strongly religious. They go to church once a year, twice a year type thing. Religion is not a central factor in their life. For those people, if you get an atheist who, it comes up once in a while, once, twice a year, but it's not really a big topic of everyday life. And then you've got somebody else where they go to church on Easter and Christmas and that's it. Then something like that can work because it's not a central issue of everyday, common, constant life. It's a rare occurrence. If, however, one or both the parties in this relationship are strongly religious or non-religious, then it can definitely be an issue. As in, someone who works on this TV show is obviously going to be pretty strongly atheist. Chances of them having a successful relationship with someone who goes to church every week, pretty slim. There's going to be too many areas of contention. And basically there are three things that I think are going to be the main issues that come up amongst a relationship. First off being respect. You have to respect this other person's views, even if you don't agree with them. You have to at least be able to respect them and say, well, I don't agree with you, but I can see your line of thought, and it does make some sense, and so you can live with that.
Agree to disagree, sort of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But a friend of mine that I was dating several years back had told me that she was of the opinion that atheist-theist relationships could not work because she could not look at a partner and respect them and accept their views and agree to disagree if they honestly believed in Santa Claus. It's just something that you just cannot respect that.
Yeah. And so we can even broaden the topic. We can say, well, can you have two different people in a couple that have different religions, get along well?
Jewish, Christian.
We have Mel Gibson who thinks his wife is going to burn in hell. He loves her very much, but sorry.
Exactly.
So you can kind of generalize that question, and religion's a pretty foundational sort of belief for many people. Whether or not it's particularly strong, it's a core belief.
Yeah, yeah. So, and again, that goes back to how strongly do the people in the relationship believe in this.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing to look at.
So that's one. It's just plain old respecting their views. Another one is the topic of discussion, just general discussion of these things. Religion, as you said, is very foundational. It's a core belief for many people. Therefore, when someone comes along and starts challenging those views and attacking them to a certain degree. They feel like that other person is pulling away at their entire foundation of who they are and what they believe and why we are where we are. And that's usually viewed as a personal attack. A lot of times if you start debating with a religious person on, on these issues, they take it as a personal attack more than I don't agree with your views and here's why. Again, if this is something that comes up once, twice a year, that may not be such a big issue. You have a spat once in a while, you can work through that. But if it's something that's coming up every single week, then that's going to be something very hard to get over. That's going to wear it down.
And it's probably a good idea to get that resolved before you have kids and you decide, well,
exactly.
You have these big arguments about how the kids are going to be raised and
exactly.
what faith.
Exactly. Which is the third point.
Yeah, okay. I'm jumping ahead of you.
Yes. Great minds think alike. Exactly. If there's even the contemplation that children come into the picture, can you agree on how they should be raised? Should they be raised in one religion or the other? Is one parent going to be comfortable, as in the Christian parent, among an atheist Christian, for instance, are they going to be willing to be the only one who brings them to church and teaches them all of the Christian values and, Christian teachings and such? And are they going to be comfortable also having the atheist half tell them that, well, look, while mommy, believes in God and Jesus, I don't, and here are the reasons why. Are they going to be comfortable with that? And are both of you going to be comfortable if the child decides to go in a direction that is counter to you? If you're an atheist, would you be okay with your child deciding that, well, no, the other side is, Jesus makes a lot more sense than, you weird atheists do. And vice versa. Is the Christian going to be okay if the kid decides to say, well, no, that other side makes a lot more sense, and so I'll go, I don't believe that there is this God thing. Now, obviously, in any relationship, my last point was just, in any relationship, discussion and having an open relationship are the most important things ever. These should not be an issue. Children should never be an issue for relationships because you should have that worked out by that point. If you don't have it worked out, you haven't been discussing enough, you haven't been talking enough. So if it gets down to that's an issue, you've waited too long.
Yeah. You might want to maybe even broach that subject before you get married.
Exactly. So yeah, I mean, these are just as with anything, politics.
Mm-hmm. Oh, politics is another big one.
You should,
and of course, there's always the money in relationships. That's another real big one. You got to get that figured out.
Exactly. So yeah, this is the kind of thing that most of this should be worked out pretty early in advance before it becomes a problem.
Yep.
Really.
Yep.
So. But anyway, that was the main email that we had. Again, if you have questions or comments for us, or again, topics possibly for the show that we can discuss, tv@atheist-community.org. We'd love to hear from you. Anyway, now to our co-host for the week, Don Baker.
Yeah, we have this format where we have rotating co-hosts, and the rotating co-hosts come and bring in some material. And I've been kind of doing a little series on myths that are promoted by religions and Christianity in particular. Last time I talked about the virgin birth myth. We got the first half hour of our show preempted, unfortunately, so we may have missed some of our regular viewers. I don't know if that's going to be re-aired or not. But this time I'm going to talk about the Virgin Guadalupe, which is very important in Hispanic America. And next time, which will be 4 weeks from now, I'll be talking about the Christian nation myth. So, so for today, we have this rather big and very important myth in the Catholic Church, especially in the Americas, of the Virgin Guadalupe, which relates to an apparition that occurred. And the story goes that on December 9th in 1531, quite a while back, near Mexico City, a devout Catholic peasant by the Christian name of Juan Diego first saw the first of 4 apparitions, and it was this woman, this young woman, who appeared to him in this apparition and wanted to have a temple built to her on that site. And he went to the bishop and was telling the bishop about this, and the bishop didn't believe him and asked for more proof. Juan Diego went back to the site and saw other apparitions. The important one is that this woman who sort of claimed to be, which is basically identified with the Virgin Mary, created a miracle for him, and that was she made, in the middle of winter, she made these Spanish roses, because Castilian roses grow magically, and it was the dead of winter, so those couldn't have been there. And so, and she told him to gather those up and take them to the bishop to show, and he did that. And in his cloak, his tilma is called. And when he dropped these roses, when he showed these roses to the bishop, I have a little picture of it here. You've probably seen this sort of image. When he showed this image, he showed the roses to the bishop, there was this miraculous image that appeared on his cloak, on his tilma, that was effectively painted by these roses. And this image was of the Guadalupe, who actually was the source of the apparition. So, and surely you've seen this sort of thing if you've been paid any attention in a Mexican food restaurant or in the votive candle section of the supermarket. You've seen this sort of thing. And okay, so this is almost sort of like a notion of a photographic image that's appeared there, and this image is of a lone, supposedly dark-skinned woman who is treading on a snake. There's a half moon there, and underneath there's actually a little angel underneath supporting the whole thing. So, and it turns out this cloak is a real artifact. It actually exists, and this is the image from the cloak, or the tilma, and it's a little cockeyed, isn't it? It's a little better. Anyway, this trying very hard to get it dialed in. So this image this cloak actually exists. It's at a basilica of the Virgin Guadalupe in Mexico City, or near Mexico City, and you can actually go and see it to this very day. And this basilica, as it turns out, is probably I think it's the second most visited shrine in all of the Catholic world. And here's a picture of the basilica. This is the old and the new. The old is on the left, and what's kind of interesting about that building is it actually leans off to one side, because the conquistadors, when they came to conquer Spain, they filled in a lake there and built a building on top of it, so the foundation's sinking. So they actually created another basilica. This is the new one over on this side. So this is a very important image, a very important apparition that occurred. And by 7 years after the time this apparition became visible, the 8 million natives of the Aztecs converted, at least nominally, to Catholicism. So this is actually a very important turning point in the spread of Catholicism to the New World. I can't emphasize that enough, and it's a very important part of the culture of Mexico and most of the South American countries, or the Latin American countries in this continent. So it's still a sensation today. It's the most popular graven image in Mexico. There's annual festivals for this. The basilica is kind of interesting. I've actually been there in person, and this tilma is mounted way up on the ceiling, way up high, or not near the ceiling, let's put it that way, way up high, and they've added a moving floor in the new basilica, a moving escalator to keep people moving around. So
now, I am interested really quickly. I don't know if you were getting to this in a couple of minutes, but you said there were 4 different apparitions.
Yeah, well, we're going to focus mostly on the cloak, which is kind of the main one. The rest of them are kind of more. There's not direct evidence for that. So, okay. So I'm not even going to emphasize those too much. But this cloak is something that there's a tangible thing, right? So it's worth kind of focusing on that and deciding whether there's really a miracle there. Okay. So I was talking about the basilica and this thing there, and the moving floors are kind of interesting. So if you're a skeptic and you go there, it's a tough thing because you get whizzed along and you can't see very much, and then you're out of there. You know, Wham bam, thank you, ma'am. So, well, I thought it was amusing. One of the little blurbs about the basilica said, "The faithful can look up the picture from a moving mat that slides in two directions, so that devotees will not remain in ecstasy contemplating their beloved Virgin." So this is a feature, not a not a bug.
Feature, not a bug.
Okay, so. But when we pull back a little bit and pull away from the myth or the stated myth and such, and look at the context in which it happened, things start looking a little more suspect. Clearly, this apparition benefited the Catholic Church and the spread of Catholicism throughout the New World. It was also instrumental in the Spanish conquest of Mexico, and we'll talk about that in more detail. Juan Diego is become kind of a symbol of simple yet passionate faith in his conversion to Catholicism. And since he was an Aztec who converted, he's almost kind of like this Uncle Tom symbol in the United States, where Uncle Tom kind of is okay with the slavery, but is like in the Juan Diego is kind of okay with the Spaniards coming and taking over their country. Juan Diego has become a religious figure in himself. He was canonized in July of 2002, and he's Latin America's first indigenous saint. Now, we'll talk more about Juan Diego in a little bit. Nobody's quite sure he actually existed, unfortunately. So, okay, so let's pull back and take a look at some of this. And first off, the image that we see in the tilma is actually based on earlier art, it turns out. So you can take a look at this from an art history perspective and a historical perspective and say and trace this from earlier things. So this image is based on a banner that was brought with the conquistador Cortez from another shrine to Guadalupe in Spain that was established about 2 centuries earlier. Okay, so Guadalupe isn't a name that the Aztecs gave him. This was a name that was brought over from Spain, and actually that name actually has some Spanish and Moorish influence from the Moors were there in Spain prior. Anyway, so it turns out that there's another Guadalupe that was discovered, if you will. Here's a picture, and this is of Our Lady of Guadalupe, and this was discovered by a cowherder in Spain around 1326, and this is kind of a subject of a lot of mythology as well. There is this statue, and it's a mother and child, and they've dressed it up so you can't see very much. You can only see the face here, a hand, the scepter's been added, and then there's the face of the child, and it's
almost Muslim.
Yes. There is that sort of idea that this has a Muslim influence, and it's a mother and child, and it may or may not have been religious. It may have just been some art that was dumped and discovered, or there's all sorts of stories.
Not that they don't want it. So.
Yeah, there's all sorts of stories about this, but the fact that they're dark-skinned is actually fairly important in all this. Okay, so as it turns out, both Christopher Columbus and Cortez were very much influenced by this earlier Guadalupe and the story, and then the stories around that. So, which is another level of the myth and such. But that's I'm going to kind of downplay for this presentation. So Christopher Columbus was actually very fond of Guadalupe, and so was Isabella and Ferdinand, the King and Queen of Spain, and they kind of this mutual love of this appearance of Mary, of which there are many, by the way, was kind of, I think, a driving force, or was helpful in him getting money to go and take his ships over, to discover America. when he landed, he named the first place he landed Guadalupe, and he named the first native woman he met Guadalupe, and he actually brought back a bunch of natives to be converted to Christianity at this site in Spain. Okay, so there's a strong connection there. For Cortez, who was the conquistador who came and conquered the Aztecs, he actually grew up in the area around this temple, this shrine, and he was bit by a scorpion as a young boy, and attributed his survival of that to Guadalupe. So he actually was pretty fond of her as well, because he considers to have saved his life. Cortez, when he came to the New World, he, as part of his banner that served as the unofficial flag of the Spaniards, had an image of Guadalupe on it. Okay, so this apparition is starting to look rather shady, right? It's starting to look like, well, oh, we have this prior image that's being brought over consciously by the Spaniards, all right? And I think there's very little coincidence here. I think it's very calculated. This image that's been described on this banner was basically described as a beautiful image of a Virgin Mary wearing gold crown and surrounded by 12 gold stars. She has her hands together in prayer, asking her son to give her strength to the Spaniards so that they might conquer the heathens and Christianize them. This is what a historian described as this banner. So, and also, King and Queen of Spain by this time had declared Guadalupe the protector of the Indians. So already we have Guadalupe very much associated with the New World and the conquest, and the dark skin of the statue being very much associated with the dark skin of the natives that they're meeting. Okay. So the Spaniards come, they do their conquest, they have a fairly easy time, it turns out, because of the mythology of the Aztecs. Quetzalcoatl was their main god, and he was supposed to have returned at some point, and it was not too hard to convince them that the Spaniards were Quetzalcoatl for a while, and so they actually didn't fight as they would have if they didn't have this myth. There was another legend and another goddess, Tonantzin, who was kind of the mother goddess, Mother Earth goddess, and I think the Spaniards figured out that this is kind of a good point to maybe twist that goddess to their own needs. And so what they did is there was a particular place, a hill called Tepeyac, that where Tonantzin had a shrine, and they in a fairly calculated way replaced the idol there with their own image of Guadalupe. That particular one didn't take, as it turns out. There was a lot of fighting and a lot of frustration that the Spaniards were destroying the old gods and the old ways, and that I think they had put up a picture or an image of Our Lady of Remedy, which is another image of Mary, another graven image. They got the idea of this tilma, or they got this. They created a new image that was actually painted by a local artist by the name of Marcos Zipactli. These novel names are tongue twisters for sure. Okay, so this artist actually borrowed this image from the banner, removed the stars, and left the crown, as it turns out, and painted this thing. And then they put this up, and later on they cooked up this story that this was a miraculous thing. In fact, this story didn't show up for about 100 years later. So we have the image kind of being associated with this god, and the fact that the image, they did a few things to more associate it with the god that was there, and so they in effect convinced the Aztecs that the old gods were still alive, and that they were just sort of transmorgifying into these new gods, and that Guadalupe was really Tonantzin. It was really the same thing. So that was kind of an easier pill to swallow at that point. All of this this destruction of the Aztec culture occurred under this bishop by the name of Juan de Zumarraga, who was a proud student of the Inquisition. This was the same bishop, by the way, who Juan Diego went and supposedly had visited, but unfortunately he was in Spain at the time, so they have a little problem with their story there. This guy actually was kind of oversaw the destruction of the Aztec culture, the libraries, and a lot of the monuments and things that they had built. There is nothing positively known about Juan Diego, although there are many stories, which is really strange. There's no bones of Juan Diego or any real thing, but they have these very detailed accounts of this discussion with Juan Diego and Guadalupe in his visions. So let's see. An examination by scientists in 1982 concluded that the image was hand painted, and later some three Vatican priests actually wrote a letter to the Pope, sort of encouraging him not to beatify, which is a step prior to canonization of Juan Diego, because they didn't believe it. They basically thought that this was a hoax, and that they didn't want it to go any further. And these so
that was the actual.
These were actually the actual priests that
were.
Yeah, these were priests that were actually involved in the handling of the tilma and kind of keeping it and such. So they were actually very close to it.
So they say that it's actually. So they kind of agree that this looks like a hand painting. It's probably not miraculous.
Right.
So, okay. All right.
Right. And there was a main supporting document of the story, and that was later found to be a forgery. So the whole thing is kind of falling apart. But there's this wonderful quote by Joseph Goebbels, who's Hitler's administrator of propaganda, who basically said, "A lie repeated often enough and forcefully enough gains the legitimacy of truth." And he had this notion of a big lie, that the bigger the lie, the more absurd and the more reinforcement you have, the easier it is to sell it. So we have that same thing going on here. We have quite a bit of embellishment going on of this basic story that I've already told you. We have this notion that Guadalupe is actually a bastardization or a translation, if you will, of a nautical word, Quetzalcoatl. I'm probably mispronouncing it. Which there's a nautical word, which is the native Aztec language, that basically means crushing the serpent, which is very interesting. Very interesting because. We have a picture. We have in an image. We have her standing on a serpent, and that's significant because Quetzalcoatl, their main god, was a serpent god. So here we have her, Guadalupe.
Yeah.
Kind of.
It sounds like
this.
It's got the image of crushing the old god.
Right. Right.
Huh.
And actually, this half moon on the bottom is symbolic throughout Europe as conquering the pagan beliefs.
Okay.
It's a symbol of the triumphs of Christianity over pagan beliefs. There's another embellishment that they did, and that is supposedly they have this big holy thing that if you take a look at the right eye of the Guadalupe image and you magnify it so much that you can see that it's basically a photographic imprint of what she was seeing at the time that this imprint was made. So it's kind of giving you the idea that it's a photograph, and they have various so-called scientific experts verifying this. But it turns out these scientific experts are ophthalmologists. Okay, now what do ophthalmologists do for a living? They look for eye diseases and they look for problems in the eye. So they have nothing. No, they know nothing as a rule about art or digital imaging or that sort of thing. So that's what passes as scientific experts.
Wow.
And I would claim that this is very much like we claim to see the man in the moon, and it's because we are very, very well wired for looking for faces and looking for things. And there's lots of conflicting stories about what's in this photograph, this supposed photograph. Okay, there's another fuss being made about how this cactus fiber cloth, which is supposed to be rather primitive sort of cloth, has held up so many years. And it turns out that this cloth is actually made of palm fiber. It's something else entirely that does last quite a bit longer. We have Juan Diego who in his alleged the Catholic Church did a lot of so-called research to shore up their story for the canonization, and they have this in this biography of him. They had him spending literally 10 hours a day walking back and forth between his home and the church where he went and visited. So they have him so devout that he spends all of his time walking back and forth to the church. So that's kind of although he's supposedly a farmer, weaver, or laborer, and he has him walking. But then they also discovered that he had been previously a former Aztec military commander. So out of the blue, they decided, well, he was a former Aztec and he was son of a king and all this. So anyway, so this thing just gets bigger and bigger. And the Catholic Church has definitely associated themselves with it by canonizing Juan Diego. They have said that this is something that passes our test for being a miracle, and we stand by it. And the Catholic Church certainly makes a lot of money from this myth. Now I'm going to ask a few questions, I think, to our audience, or a few questions, I think, to believers of this, and then we'll open the phone for questions. Maybe what we can do while I'm doing that is we can put up the phone number for our call-in show. We're live today. What is today?
Yeah, we are live. It is May 2nd right now.
Okay.
We'll be getting the callers in a little bit, and here's the topic that we're going to be talking about.
Yeah. So here are my questions. How can you trust a church that is promoting such an obvious myth? Okay, it's very simple. How can you trust someone who's obviously lying to you? And how can you accept the moral principles from a church that they themselves don't follow? So they're claiming this high moral ground of thou shalt not lie, thou shalt not bear false witness. But here we have a definite case of this happening. This thing is kind of a very big snowballing thing, and I think the message that their tacit approval of this myth says is Christianity has so little value on its own that it must be promoted through lies and cultural destruction, and that's I think the message that this sends is that you have to lie in order to believe in Christianity.
Okay.
And I'm sure we'll have some viewers that will think that's a controversial statement.
Just a little.
And we might have some viewers that say, well, I'm a Protestant and these Catholics make up all this stuff, and that's their problem, and I don't buy it. I think that if you're a Protestant and you see the Catholic Church making up these myths, you should be complaining just as loud as I am. So by their silence, I would claim that the Protestants agree with this assertion that Christianity needs lies in order to support itself. So with that, I think we have some callers. We're getting them screened by our guys. Anyway.
So just to kind of recap here, make
sure
sure I've got
presented a lot of stuff.
Yeah, quite a few things here. Just to make sure that I've got it straight in my head.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, what we're talking about is Lady of Guadalupe was an original painting that was done, I think it was found or at least discovered around the 1300s.
Yeah, it was actually a statue.
Okay, it was a statue.
Yes, and it became a source of iconography, a source of images that...
Exactly. It was very popular. It was very powerful.
Right.
To a lot of influential people at that time.
That's right.
These influential people are the ones who went on to, or at least some of them, to have a hand in discovering and bringing over people to the New World.
That's right.
Mexico, South
That's
America,
right.
North America, that type of thing.
And bringing Catholicism to the New World.
Exactly.
Now remember that Spain didn't have any sort of notion of separation of church and state. So the church and the state were basically the same thing.
Yeah.
And they more or less got a decree from the Pope. Go for it. We want more Christians.
Okay, so they had this original image, who influenced those people. Those people then went over to the New World.
Mm-hmm.
And then this Marcos Zapatla, or sorry, I'm not trying to be disrespectful here. It's just the name was
Zapatli.
redid the image.
Right. In
essentially.
fact, yes. Yeah. He actually painted the original one, and it's actually been retouched and
oh, did he paint that original one?
He painted the original one.
Oh, okay.
And the image has been retouched and added to. One source I read actually said that they actually did away with one image completely. Did away with the whole thing and redid it.
Okay.
And at that point, they forgot to put the crown on.
Okay.
At that point, and the Catholic Church claimed it was a miracle that the crown had disappeared from this image.
Okay, so this new one is a bit more in line with some of the gods of the Aztecs and whatever, to kind of convince them that, here's our god, and wow, it looks fairly similar to yours, doesn't it?
Well, no, these changes actually occurred afterwards, long afterwards. So these changes occurred in the 1700s and 1800s. So,
all right. So essentially they have this Lady of Guadalupe image, and then Juan Diego comes along, supposedly, assuming that there's an actual person.
Right.
Comes along. He has a vision of her, says he met her, goes back to the church, church says, bollocks. He goes out, and the Virgin Mary grows some roses in the middle of the winter.
That's right.
He collects them all, puts them in his coat, goes back to church, flashes them.
Right.
The roses fall out, and on his coat they have this image painted.
Right.
The Virgin Mary comes along, basically. And imprints herself on his coat.
Yes, beautiful story, isn't it? I'm actually really enjoying the story and the mythology surrounding it. Although I don't believe any of it, I think it's wonderful stuff, but I don't buy it. I don't buy it as real. So I'm actually enjoyed doing some research on this. So yes, you have it right. And
also one other question I did have though. This is the Lady of Guadalupe. You had said that the name Guadalupe is very similar to one of the Aztec, Quetzalcoatl or something like that.
That's just a phrase that means one who crushes the serpent. It's not a god.
So is Lady of Guadalupe, was that wording attached to it prior to them coming to...
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so Guadalupe was there before.
Guadalupe actually refers to a river in Spain.
Okay, so is it just a coincidence that Guadalupe is similar to this other language?
I think it is. I think it's one of those interesting coincidences. So I'll give them that coincidence. Let's put it that way.
Okay, all right.
I buy that that's a coincidence.
Okay, all right.
I don't buy that the river was named because of this apparition that was going to occur in the new world
300 years later.
Right,
200 years later.
I don't buy that. So
okay, all right. Okay. All right, while we're getting calls, again, it's a live show. It's May 2nd. Go ahead and give us a call. And like I say, if you have any comments, questions, we'd love to hear from you. And first we have, let's see, Paul, how you doing?
Good, how y'all?
Well, not too bad. What you got for us?
And y'all are going to burn in hell. Y'all know that, right? No, I'm joking. I'm sorry, I had to throw that out there. Well, I've seen your show a few times. I'm flipping channels, and I just happened to catch it here and the subject matter of what you were talking about. Just in a nutshell, I have a Southern Baptist preacher daddy. That was my background. And if this would have been probably 8 years ago, I would have seriously told y'all were going to burn in hell and Jesus needed to save you and everything. But just a quick comment. I mean, everything you're saying, you're hitting it on the head. And even more of a controversy, as you probably know, the resurrection of the death of the Savior is the ultimate thing to try to get the people to go along with their God, which there's been, at least as I know of, 16 other world crucified Saviors throughout history that went through the same type of thing, and there being an allegorical statement in that, obviously. But so I agree, and I hope people that any religious person or Christian especially, because Christianity seems to have that separation thing with it, to where we're the right ones and everybody else is the wrong ones, and going to burn in hell because of, like you said before, what the church laid down as being the truth. But one other thing I'd like to add before I hang up here, you know, I was in the Marine Corps too for 4 years. Was in Desert Storm back in the day. I see that American flag there up front, and then I see next to it, skepticism is what, a virtue?
A virtue.
A virtue.
And I mean, that's so wonderful. But you know, and to me, and I say I'm a Marine. I was a former Marine, so people won't think I'm some communist or whatever. But you know, in a sense, when I see that flag up there, and how you were saying church and state, oh, it was so perfect. You know, about that to me is almost the same thing as a cross sitting up there, because of what, at the heart of what that flag represents, I think, of the people and how they feel about America, but then the illusion that's been set up by this government of what that represents. And people kind of, it could be a battle flag to some people, you understand?
It's a symbol that's used lots of different ways.
Yeah.
And has... and a lot of people think that other people are dragging it through the mud in the way that they view the symbol, right? There's lots of different notions of what patriotism means. Yes.
Right on.
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago we actually had Karen Glasser came on. She talked about the flag a lot, saying how blind patriotism is very similar to religion, as in you have these sets of words that you give, like the pledge, these sets of actions that you do, and it's not something that you think about, it's just something that you do.
Right, and not questioning.
And it's a form of brainwashing almost, just to get people to blindly follow and say that, you know, made in America, that means it's great, you know.
Right.
And just, you know, I pledge allegiance to the flag. And it's basically, it's just brainwashing to say whatever America does is right.
Yeah.
Right.
Just like religion.
It becomes a religion in itself,
Exactly.
almost. Yeah.
Just like religion saying you're not supposed to question it. Just, there was God. Jesus came. He died. He rose from the dead. You see, that person's God.
Right.
Don't question anything.
Not to mention hell hanging over your head there.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. If you don't believe the good stuff, we'll burn you in hell. So one way or the other, the carrot and the stick.
Right. Well, I just want to tell y'all, you know, I appreciate these are serious times we live in. So, you know, both of these are at such a heated debate these days of what we're talking about. So I respect y'all for, you know, trying to get some truth out there.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Well, we try to get a different view. So, okay. Thank you very much for calling.
Yeah. Let me make another point here. He touched on the subject of, in my research on this, I was amazed to find, and I think that this is a general theme, is that these myths sort of build on each other. That you know, here we have the Guadalupe appearing in the United States, based on this earlier one, which itself has a rich set of stories and things with it, and it actually goes back and back and back, and you have to, I think, in researching this, be willing to do a lot of digging as far as you know, uncovering these various layers and different interpretations and so on.
Yeah, where my position is now, I'm a little bit, don't think about it all that often. I'm kind of questioning it also, but I used to always assume that a lot of things in the Bible were stories retold over generation that get built upon. And so basically this, you know, water into wine that Jesus did, Jesus brought out some water that, you know, cattle had died in it 2 weeks before. It tasted rancid. You tell that story 500-600 times, it's wine. And that's what gets written down. And so now I'm not too sure I want to, you know, give this.
Oral histories are what can be remembered, and what you know, and people do embellish. Yes.
Yeah, I'm not too sure if it's now so much possibly people actually making the story, you know, to make converts. As in, you know, if I tell a really good story, I can convert somebody to my religion. Therefore, let me find a really good story. So, which of those two it is? Probably a little bit of both.
Yeah, it's just hard to know how conscious it is.
Of course.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's. Okay, Tim, how you doing?
I'm doing terrific. How are you?
Not too bad. What you got for us?
Well, you know, I'm an atheist, and usually I'm pretty firm in my beliefs, and I love debate and, you know, telling people the way it is, and, you know, I usually stay away from the belief in God, but I had an experience this past week that, you know, makes me appreciative that others do believe in some form of Almighty, and that was, I was in a retail store and was in there for a good half hour when the description of my vehicle came overhead. I assumed I had my lights on or such. It turned out that my vehicle had moved its way to another car and put a major...
Oh, no!
Yeah. So I guess I figured out that the parking brake had failed. And then the insurance company, I won't say their name because I don't want them to be convinced of what really happened.
Yeah.
But they concluded that was an act of God.
So God was joyriding in your car?
Not because I was at the vehicle. It's an act of God that resulted in the accident. and which was great for me because no increase in my premiums, no spending on the deductibles.
He's a great scapegoat for a lot of things, isn't he?
God took my car and joyrided it around the neighborhood. I swear it wasn't me.
God told me to attack Iraq. Yeah. It's all his fault. Yep. Well,
so I just wanted to express that. And,
yeah, that's a good story. I like that.
Okay. Did you have anything else for us? Okay. All right. Thanks a lot for calling.
Okay. We have a little gap here. I have another little image that's kind of interesting. We have the Virgin Mary appearing all sorts of places, especially in the Americas here. Here we have an appearance of the Virgin Mary. It's a little hard to see. What we're seeing is an office building. This cross is added later, so that's not relevant to what I'm showing you. But we have this sort of hood-like feature here on the windows of this office building in Florida, and a lot of people think that this looks a lot like Guadalupe. You know, this looks very much like her, and it turns out this has become kind of a little phenomenon. There are a lot of people that go to this place and worship and pray and such, and you can see that this is like a normal office building. This is not a church, but all of a sudden we have chairs here for people to come and sit, and we have the cross and such, and for this particular one, the people won't tell you that this is an image that is formed by thin film diffraction, where you get like an oily substance on water, and it will reflect certain light, and so it'll give you these sort of funny colors. And they won't also tell you that there used to be a tree there that had a
sprinkler system.
I think just the rain and such from the second story coming down on this tree and then pouring on the window has created the image. And the tree isn't there anymore. The tree's gone, but they won't tell you that there was a tree there, and that's kind of gives you kind of the plausible way of how that image might have come up.
I'm not too sure exactly which one it is, but there was an atheist conference down in Florida about a year ago, I think, I want to say.
Yeah.
And I know our own Michelle from the ACA went down there also.
Right.
And her and...
the group did a little field trip, and they actually had James Randi along.
James Randi, exactly. They all went out to this building, and they did see this. And it was really funny because they walked around, a church or something has bought the building. And they have like a gift shop inside and stuff like that where you can buy images and keychains of this.
That's right.
But they said that they took a walk around the rest of the building, and they've got, plants and shrubs and everything there, and sprinklers and such. And so when you look around the building, you see lots of areas where they got the same, kind of patterning on it of just, weird marks and stuff like that because of, oils and whatnot. And they found like a Buddha on one side and stuff like that. So,
and he's just not getting enough
exactly
marketing, I guess.
But yeah, I mean, the fact is that when you're talking about a hooded figure of this, anything can form that kind of an image.
Right.
I mean, that's something that's so basic that, anything that comes along is likely to form something like that.
And a little later on, we'll show another image, or we can do it now. Okay. Either way.
Let's go on. We have a couple calls on here, so let's go on to Judge. How you doing?
Hey, great. How are you guys?
Not too bad.
All right.
My name is Judge. I'm a recovering Catholic and a devout atheist.
Okay.
And, I'm an atheist by choice, not as an aggressive act of desecration to any other religion.
Okay.
I know a lot of people say they're atheists because they're upset with Christianity, and that's not the reason.
Yeah.
Earlier in the show, if I just make comment, you talked about raising children and what religion you're going to raise them in. Why should it be your choice in the first place? I've raised 3 children, and I let them make their own decisions. But they made all that stimulus available to them.
Yeah.
Being an athist, then Buddhist, whatever. I made that all available to them.
Yeah.
If you treat your children with that
but each religion has some pretty strong traditions associated with them, especially with respect to children, right? So are you is your approach then to expose the children to all these, to get them baptized and get them have a bar mitzvah,
celebrate
all
these
sorts of things?
No, not to generally expose them to them in the fact of making them join the churches, but I of course made it open to them to make the option to study that religion, or if they wanted to see that religion. I took my daughter to 3 or 4 different churches when she was 7 years old because she was interested.
Yeah.
I never pushed anything, and I know they have the tradition. That's one thing that's wrong with religion. Yeah. Secondly, as you were talking about with with faith, how a church or religion can lie to you and you accept it. It's one word, and this is it, faith. And that's what they use for every excuse.
Yeah.
Is it's all based on faith.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ never existed. There's only two mentions of him in any historical documents ever.
Yeah.
He didn't exist, and there were daily chronicles sent from Jerusalem and Palestine during that time back to Rome, which are available. There's no mention of a Christian uprising.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, and one other comment, if I may, there is no separation of religious of state and religion, church and state in this country. We are all under the rule of Christian morality. A laundromat can keep its door open 24 hours, but you can't buy liquor in Texas on Sunday.
Yeah.
I mean, don't tell me that we aren't forced to live under their morality, and that was wrong with the Greek religion, the Greek democracy, which was one of the greatest. Is they started making laws on people's morality, which we can't do, but which we do constantly. And one passing thing is, what does an atheist scream when he makes love? I need to pass on that. I'm having a hard time with that one. I love you guys. It's great. Keep it up. We don't have to, and once again, we don't have to defend ourselves all the time for our belief. As long as we don't attack the others. I don't know why I'm always on the defensive when I say I'm an atheist, and I just don't understand. But once again, Nero had the right idea. I'm sorry. No, I shouldn't have said that. Talk to you later. Bye.
Okay, thanks a lot for calling.
I have a couple little things I'd like to comment on.
Yeah,
that.
so do I.
We have, as far as raising the children and such, I firmly agree with exposing children to different religions, and in fact, they do that in as part of this education in England.
Yes.
Is they actually have a religious education, expose children to different beliefs, and I think that's a great thing. It sort of says that it puts everything on an equal par, and sort of says that, you know, these people believe very firmly in this, and these other people believe very firmly in that, and you know, it's there, and you should respect that, and you know, what do you believe? Is sort of, I think, the tacit question.
Yeah.
And I think it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And when I was writing this email, that's something that kind of escaped me. I was picturing it more as small children. When kids are 5, 6 years old, typically they're not voluntarily showing interest in too many religions, typically.
Yeah.
And so it's typically going to be the parents kind of dictating, this is our religion, this is how we were raised, and this is how we're going to raise you. Mm-hmm. Right or wrong, that's typically how it's done. So again, I was picturing young children. If you have two different religious parents, one, they would each kind of teach the child about their own ideas, and would they both be comfortable with that? But it still raises the concern, as in, if you have someone who is strongly religious, of any religion, are they comfortable with the other parent teaching their kid all these other religions that are out there in the world, and kind of diluting them from the truth? And so it's still a problem. Again, if you have an atheist and a theist trying to form a relationship, it's still a sticking point. Regardless of how it's done, it's not going to be easy. Mm-hmm. So, and also about religion dictating, as in we're living under Christian morality and they're dictating their laws and such. To a certain extent, that is true. We still have Saturdays and Sundays off. The Sunday being the holy day of the week.
One can't argue that this is a very big part of the culture in the United States. Exactly.
It's part of the culture, and I kind of have a hard time saying that while it does have its religious roots to it, that we're under the yoke of religious oppression. Mm-hmm. because you can't buy liquor on Sunday, or something like that. We are not.
We're very lucky. We're very lucky in the United States because we have the ability to challenge those laws.
Yeah, we have this show.
We have this show.
You can't do that if this were an actual theocracy,
right,
where the government is dictating that
right,
you shall be this religion, and if you ever speak poorly of this religion, we can send you to prison or something like that. Mm-hmm. We'd be in prison a long time ago. So
yeah, so we live in a great country as far as that goes.
So yeah, absolutely. Christianity and religion definitely does influence our culture, but I don't think it really has such a stranglehold that it is a controlling factor all too often. At least not through government, typically. It has its little uproars here and there, but it's not a control. It's not that bad, in my opinion. So,
Okay.
okay. Anyway, this is a live show again. It's May 2nd, and if you have any questions or comments, please give us a call. We'll put that phone number up in just a couple seconds.
But we have a few callers right now.
Yes, we do, and we are going to go on to Jay. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. I haven't talked to y'all. Been gone for almost 10 months. Anyway.
Okay.
Something that I used to notice on some of these talk shows that's always bothered me. Because if always in the religious background it says predestination.
Okay.
Okay, so I called in on several of them and talked to them, and this is then if this is true that our life is made for us and planned from the day we're born through a religious form, and step by step and everything. Why do we have pedophiles, murderers, rapists? And I said, then it's also, and what gets them that they cannot stand and it hates them, then are all lesbian, gays predestination. And you get these holy homophobic ministers on there, they slam the phone up on you.
Yeah.
And I said, there is no such thing then, as far as I'm concerned, as predestination, if that's what they're considering, that it's perfect.
Yeah. Predestination, it's a tough one. I've kind of got mixed feelings about that. On one hand, you've got, if you take the world in a purely scientific basis, the world operates on physical, natural laws. If you drop something, it goes down. If you put two chemicals together, they're either going to react or they're not going to react. Those type of things. You can get down to a pretty small level and still have that, and even down to subatomic levels, things are still based on percentages. You know, if you put these two things together, chances are that this is going to happen. If you look at it like that, then predestination almost is something that is happening because, again, we can't change the laws of physics. We're still chemical reactions in our brain are still run by physical processes. So that's one hand of it. On the other hand, we don't know the outcome of the story. We've still got to make decisions on our day-to-day life. Things come up, and we have to decide how we're going to react to this and what we're going to do.
Well, I would take a little issue with your first statement, that
okay.
You know, yes, we live in a physical world and all that, but and the macroscopic scale of, you know, pushing things around on the table or cars crashing, that sort of thing, things are very much predictable.
Yes.
But when you start talking about things at the very small scales or very large forces and such, we have, you know, quantum effects that basically as part of our understanding is there's a certain amount of uncertainty to it, and that's an inherent thing. So I would claim that this uncertainty, you know, in a lot of things, as far as you know, chemical reactions and whether or not this neuron is going to fire at this precise moment or a little bit later, we have this uncertainty affecting us at a more macroscopic level.
Yeah.
And
but when overall, I'm not trying to understand what you're saying, but if two people, you got twins, you got most of the time on there, I don't say most of the time, 50% of the time, let's say, you're going to have one that gets into trouble, a lawbreaker. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
These are almost even identical twins.
Yeah, our genes don't.
That's what I'm saying.
They don't write the story.
Yeah.
Right. They tell the makeup of our body, and there's so much that is influenced by other things. You know, they even have clones now of various animals, and they don't necessarily even look the same. So there's other factors at work here, just besides genes.
Well, this is what, if you try to explain it to somebody that's would say your life's predestined. I mean, there's no true meaning when they say it. And I said, and explain, like I've said before, if we had done this, you should have been able to pinpoint by now in mankind of the science field, hey, that one's going to be a murderer or something by what the background is, and they can't do it.
Well, science has obvious limits to it, but predestination and that type of thing is a big problem when you start involving God in the process, because apparently God is all-knowing. He should be able to tell what's going to happen. He knows he knows what's going to happen in the world, past, present, and future. So if someone is being born today and going to go up to be a murderer, he knows that, and yet he's allowing it to happen.
That's what I'm saying. It's evil.
So yes, he's responsible for something here.
And then if God stands for all good, I don't think he would create something that would be evil. That's my
exactly.
opinion.
Exactly.
All right.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks for calling. All right. Let's see. We can go on and take more callers. Again, we're live May 2nd. Go ahead and give us a call, and we'll talk to you for a bit and answer questions.
Should we take our next caller?
Yes, why not? Did you have one that you wanted to go over?
Oh, no. No, I think we can go on.
All right. Donald, how you doing?
Hey.
How you doing?
What's up, man? How you doing? Let me ask you a question.
Right.
How has the atheist, I guess, mindset helped out humanity as a whole? Because I haven't seen any atheists, really doing anything to improve, like living conditions here in Austin or in America, or trying to promote, racial harmony, harmony. So my question is, how has the atheists around the world really moved humanity in a better position?
Okay. First off, you see a lot of religious groups doing things to help the world in a sense of, religious charities and donations and organizations and such.
Right.
A large part of that is simply because they have the numbers and the money.
Right.
They have a lot more people in their organization, and they can twist their wording in such a way that you're more likely to give them money so that they can do things.
So you telling me it all comes down to money?
I have a completely different answer, but we'll let Ashley finish this train of thought.
2 answers, 1 question.
Okay, all right.
It's not all about money, no.
Right.
In a way, that's partly what we're trying to do on this show, in a very small, in a way that we can do something.
Right.
I can see that, for instance, morality. There are a couple different ways to say that, you shouldn't kill somebody. And there's one way to say that, well, if you kill somebody, you're going to go to jail.
Right.
That's one way. You could say, well, you can't kill somebody because God says it so.
Right.
Or you could say, you really shouldn't kill somebody because that kind of sucks for them. And if it sucks for them, chances are people who know them are going to come out and whoop you.
Right.
So there are different ways that you can come at morality. I think a religious-based morality is a very weak one. And so if everybody just believes in God and does things because God says that do this and don't do that, as soon as you start chipping away at the idea that God may actually exist, their whole morality tumbles with it.
Okay,
and we have had people on the show that says, yeah, if I found out tomorrow that God didn't exist, then yeah, sure, I'd kill people and steal their cars. Why not?
Right. So you telling me that people are born knowing right from wrong and don't need a religion towering over them to tell them right from wrong?
No, people are not born knowing right and wrong. Little kids do not know right and wrong. They beat each other up to take their toys and take their ice cream.
So
it's in that period of your life that you start learning that to get along with other people, you have to follow certain rules. You can't knock them over and take their ice cream cone because you're not going to be able to play with anybody.
True.
And so we have to start, we learn these laws and these rules because we live together.
Okay, so how does the atheist guide his or her life?
By those exact same rules. I realize that to live in society and live with other people and cooperate and make my life good, I have to treat other people well too.
So that goes back to my question: how has the atheist gone out into the world to try to spread this? To me, it's a common sense message. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and again, this.
Yeah, and I can maybe take a stab at it now.
Okay, partly we do have a small numbers. We have done the AIDS walk in Austin.
Okay.
We've donated money to that. We've done the Safe Place. Yeah, the Safe Place for women in abusive relationships and stuff like that.
Right.
We've donated money and gone on that walk.
Okay.
We have gone up to Washington to say, religion mixing with government is typically not a good thing, and so we've given speeches and stuff like that.
True indeed. Okay.
We have done our thing, but again, our numbers are relatively small, so we can't go on TV and buy up a news network, and 4 digital channels to start spreading our message.
Yeah.
Okay then.
So, and done.
So yeah, let me take a little stab at it. I think atheism helps us in that it tells us that we shouldn't rely on gods to solve our problems.
Okay.
That it tells us where not to look for solutions, and so we can avoid wasting our time on things that aren't going to work. We can solve things for ourselves, and science and technology have done a tremendous amount of philanthropy. I was reading the other day, and I don't remember the man's name, but there is a guy who, it turns out, later won the Nobel Prize for chemistry, or biochemistry, I think. And he is responsible for, more or less single-handedly, making our crops so much more efficient, so much more tolerant to different conditions and disease resistant and so on, that he's effectively, by himself, fed billions of people by this one thing. And I don't know whether he's an atheist or not, but I can pretty much guess that he isn't doing this research in a church. I think he's doing it in a lab. I think he is learning using the tenets of evolution and such, and he's out changing the world. And I can't necessarily claim him as an atheist, but I think that this is the type of thing that we think does work, and is beneficial.
Okay, all right then. But it's my last thing. Then I'm done.
Okay.
Okay, but doesn't man and woman, man and females on this planet need some kind of rule to guide their lives? Because if you just tell people just to live wild like that, then of course they're going to live wild like that. So that's why the powers that be have chained guard on them, saying,
well we live in a society, we're social animals, right? So you have to have rules that are in effect dictated by the society, in order to be a participant in that society.
Okay.
And so yes, absolutely, we can't be wild animals doing just anything we want. And I would say that the fact that we're a social species and the fact that we have to get along and have to work together, and we have these cognitive abilities to communicate to each other and create laws and that sort of thing is part and parcel of that.
Okay, cool, and I agree. Y'all have the first right. Excuse me. Y'all have your First Amendment right to speak your mind. Peace.
Peace.
Thanks for calling.
All right.
All right. Let's go on to Chris, who I believe has some actual information for us on our earlier call. Chris, how you doing?
Hi, I'm doing just fine.
Yeah.
I appreciate you characterizing it as information. I don't know that it actually raises to that level. I'm just
okay.
Some thoughts I might throw out there in reference to Don's earlier statements relating to the quantum level and how that might affect free will and cause and effect. It's an important issue for me, being an atheist, because I think that the denial of free will is one of the easiest ways to get around the whole problem of evil, of why are there murderers walking around. And quite often one of the first arguments I hear from a Christian relating to that issue as well, God has to give us free will, and that's why these things happen. It's beyond His control. So anyway, I wanted to make reference to the fact that Don had mentioned that the quantum level sometimes leads to uncertainty as far as science goes. That while we might be able to predict that the ball is going to roll down the table every time, it doesn't necessarily mean that at every level of specificity that you can tell exactly what's going to happen, and that there are very, very tiny levels of a detail that at which point uncertainty exists.
Yeah, this is the Heisenberg uncertainty principle.
Exactly. Two things I wanted to say about that. When I talked to Steve, who's running the phones right now, he had a third point, which I think I'll throw in, although I'll give credit to him for that. The first two, which I wanted to point out, were that uncertainty doesn't necessarily equal randomness. That just because we don't know why it happened, and just because we're not able to predict it in the future, what will happen in the future, doesn't necessarily mean that there isn't the same law of cause and effect affecting it. We just might not know that cause yet. We might not know the reason behind it.
Yes, actually, throwing a point here. Charles Darwin didn't understand a lot of things on why animals change the way that they do. He didn't understand this. Later, we found genes. Genes dictate why animals do the things that they do and come out the way that they come out, to a certain extent at least, based on a technology that we simply didn't understand earlier on. We didn't know why you couldn't put, a dog and a cat together and they wouldn't produce, something like this.
Yeah.
It just didn't make any sense. Well, now we have genes to tell us why.
Absolutely. That was one of the things that lent so much credibility to his theory, was that it kept being proven correctly, even with the onslaught of new information.
Exactly.
That's a good test.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, that's a good test of a theory, is if it
absolutely.
If it keeps ringing true time after time. Yep.
Okay.
The second thing I wanted to mention was that even if we have randomness, even if we could say that, okay, this reaction actually is random, there's no connection between first action and second action. It's just randomness.
Yeah.
Even if that were to be true, that doesn't necessarily lead to free will. In fact, it seems to contradict free will perhaps even harsher than the possibility of there being a connection. The fact is, if you're presented with cause and effect or randomness, I don't see how randomness would help explain choice anymore.
Exactly. Exactly. If our choices to react to something are based on a random event, that's kind of scary.
Absolutely. It seems like every concept of choice that's ever proffered by anyone who believes in free will, there's always some level of cause and effect to it.
Yeah.
That I'm reacting to my environment, making a choice based on certain factors.
Exactly.
Once you say the word factor, you pretty much eliminated the possibility of randomness from that point of view. And the third point I wanted to point out, which was it came from Steve, so I can't really take credit for this, but I think it was interesting. He said that uncertainty doesn't necessarily negate free will because it may be negligible. That if you have uncertainty at the quantum level, that may actually not have a registerable effect on the environment that we know, that we recognize, and that we're conscious of. He mentioned that perhaps there's philosophers love to throw out the concept of an alternate world where everything is the same except for X. He was saying you could have a world potentially where there was no uncertainty, and there would still be free will, perhaps, under the same, at least in the same way that there's free will.
This is definitely a deep and challenging subject. I've read things that claim that humans only have a perception of free will, that it's all just in our heads. So, this is definitely a kind of a rich topic. So I don't know if we can really do it justice on the phone here.
No, certainly that's true. Even if we had more than 15 minutes.
Yeah.
That's my 2 cents I wanted to throw in.
Well, thanks.
Okay.
Thanks. Yeah, but this is definitely an interesting subject. Maybe we can take that on someday as a topic for the show.
Yeah, that would be an interesting one. So, okay. Thanks a lot for calling, though.
Thank you.
All right. Let's go on to more callers. Nate, how you doing?
Hey, what's up, man? This is Nate, 205 room at Concordia University. Keep holding it down. Hey, I got a question for y'all.
Okay.
All right, here we go, man. I've been just tuning in this for like 5 minutes now,
okay,
and I just want to know a general question real quick. Where do you think that we come from as people? Like we're just looking around at the beautiful trees.
Okay.
The females. Oh God, it's something with them. Just everything in general. Just looking around. And where do you think all that came from, and we as people came from, and where do you think we'll go after we die and all that?
Okay. All right.
Okay. Just a little quick question, right?
Yeah. All right. We have areas of science that explain how things are the way they are.
Okay.
We have the Big Bang that happened, and that formed, all the stuff that's here. And then you have physics.
Which is cosmology.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Cosmology takes over and says, here's how stars and planets are formed. We have chemistry that says once you have, all these different chemicals, they interact in a certain way. That also gives us some chemical reactions that kind of get processes rolling. Once we have that, we have evolution that takes over and says some processes work better than others, and so those will work better and go on farther and live longer, and give that enough time essentially, and you have people. You have some
complex
beings. You have complex beings that will evolve from this.
Yeah, we're definitely not an end product of anything. We're just a
stepping stone,
an accident along the way.
But yeah, we have areas of science that kind of say this is how the world got to generally where it's at.
Yeah, don't forget physics that explains how the sun works and gravity and all that.
And we do have to be careful, as in science does explain a lot, but we also have to be careful to be able to say we don't know. Why did the Big Bang happen the way it did, and why is everything the way that it is right now? We don't know. We're looking into it. A long time ago, people, didn't know lightning. That's the gods being pissed off at you, and so they're throwing something at you to, smite you. Well, we kind of know now that it's actually weather patterns, and you can determine how this is going to happen and why it's going to strike here and why it does this kind of thing. We have a scientific explanation of what that is. It's not God's pissed off at people. As for where we go when we die, that's pretty much the end of the story.
We don't believe in souls. We don't believe in afterlife.
Exactly. There's no souls or spirits. What makes me me, in terms of my personality and such, is brain chemistry. It's it's my genetics that make me up. It's the experiences I've had through life, and it's all just a process that's going on in my brain. When I die, that process will stop, and I will just turn back into mud after a few years.
Right. So the only way we live on is through the influence we make on the world, the love we give, the things we create, that sort of thing.
Exactly. But my consciousness did not exist before I was born, and it will not exist after I die.
Yeah. So. Okay, well, that sounds real good, dog. And, I mean, I appreciate y'all and respect everything y'all doing. I got another question. My boy Bootleg from 205 also wants to know that what do you think about the Kobe trial? Is he guilty or not guilty?
I have no comment on that.
Y'all don't think so?
Unrelated to the show. I haven't watched it, sorry.
All right, well, we're searching for the ultimate truth, and I personally think, I mean, he really banged her brains out. And I mean, that's what happened, and I hope he's going to go innocent after this.
There's other shows to watch about that one. So.
Okay.
All right, well, I got another one.
Okay, one more question.
This will be the last question.
Okay, well, let me just give a shout-out to my baby mama, Lizzie, and Shaniqua, Latonia. Okay. What's up, girl? It's your boy coming up.
All right. Thanks for calling.
Take care.
It's your boy.
All right. Let's see.
Maybe we can do a, request, for...
Yeah, we can start dedicating the show to people.
Yeah, okay.
All right. Let's go on.
How about number one? We got to watch the time.
Okay. All right. Okay, how you doing? Caller number one. X, I believe X.
Hello, how you doing?
Okay, what is your name? I'm sorry.
I'm Mr. X.
Okay. All right.
All right. I got a real quick, curious question of you guys.
Okay.
At what age did either of you finally realize or came to the thought process that God doesn't exist, or He's not really someone that you should believe in, or this happened, according to the Bible? Is the Bible considered to be, some type of, rhetoric material that's, just filtered throughout the religions? And, is it something that me as a Christian I shouldn't believe in, or what the deal is? Because I feel like, I was flipping through the channels because there's nothing really on, and your show really caught my eye.
Good. Well, we're glad to hear that.
I didn't go to church this morning. I normally do on Sunday mornings, but I caught
it's a sign.
And I'm like listening to a lot of scientific. Excuse my French. It sounds like a lot of scientific BS.
Yeah.
But as a Christian, I was brought up from from a very, very young child to a big child now. The one that believes in God. And I'm just real curious. How could I convince you, someone that is not, a believer in Christ, or someone, have you ever really found out how you wake up in the morning based on, if you throw all that scientific stuff out the window, and just realize
we're not likely to do that.
Yeah.
First off,
yeah,
we think that's really good stuff.
What age did you realize that Christ didn't exist? This never happened, or this book that we're reading, of rules and regulations are just fairy tales.
Yeah, I was raised religious. I went to church every week with my family. I always had doubts and questions, and I didn't really see any evidence in my own life of any kind of, all-powerful, universe-creating deity that was watching over me. As I got older, I was kind of the opinion that so many people in this world believe that there's most likely something out there. None of the religions have it absolutely right, but there's something out there. And then after, reading and looking into this and studying it and giving it some real good solid thought, I basically come to the conclusion that religion it's a lot of wishful thinking. It's got some good
features to it.
It's got some good comforting features to it. Exactly. It gives an answer that I'm not going to die. I'm not going to end my life. I'm going to continue on in a better way. My grandparents, when they die, and my family, when they die, and friends and such, they don't just disappear out of existence, but I'm going to see them again. I'm not alone in this world. You know, I have God that's looking out for me and watches over me and really loves me. It's a lot of comforting thoughts, but that doesn't make it real. Until I get some kind of actual real-world evidence.
It raises a lot more questions than it answers if you really examine it. Exactly.
Philosophically, it raises questions, morality questions, stuff like that. But just in the general aspect of until I see some kind of evidence or proof of this, it's a nice idea, as in the idea of heaven, I'm all for it. Yeah. But until I see some evidence, I don't think it's real.
Okay. You've answered my question, and I would like to know what you got to say, Don, and I'm going to hang up here and let another caller get through before you guys get off the air.
Okay.
This is, something pretty good here.
All right, well, thanks.
Thank you.
So I guess he was wanting me to answer his question as well.
Were you raised religious, or?
I think everybody sort of makes their own mind, and it takes different atheists come to it at different times. I know of people who basically doubted from very early age. I think that for me it was sort of shades of gray. The more I looked at it, the less sense it made. Yeah. And I started in fairly recent years looking at it pretty seriously, and there's just full of holes. And that's basically part of the reason why I'm doing these presentations. Is today we covered the Guadalupe myth, and I think it's just a huge mess of nonsense, and we have a lot of people believing it, and a lot of money being exchanged about it, and a lot of moral questions that it raises, I think, are very troubling. So that's part of the reason why I'm here, is to raise some of these questions.
Yeah. As I said, I've never really strongly believed myself. Mm-hmm. I always had questions and doubts and concerns and such from as long as I can remember, basically. But I just kind of chose to believe because so many other people do. It's got to be something there. So I kind of believed along those lines.
Yeah, it's certainly easy to go with the flow.
Exactly. It wasn't until basically in the last about 5 years or so that I've really started looking into it and talking about these things and debating and come to the conclusion that no, it's not real. A lot of the people came to it much earlier, some much later. I got to it somewhere in the middle. So, all right. Let's go on. We've got about 2.5 minutes left in the show, not all that much time. One piece of very old business that we can go over, though. Who remembers our Chief Justice, Roy Moore? Or not actually ours, but Alabama.
Alabama's, right.
He was the wacko guy who put up that washing machine-sized granite Ten Commandments monument inside the main rotunda of Alabama.
Under cover of night.
Under cover of night. Had a Christian news network come and film him doing this. And then when a suit was brought to say, no, we should have this removed, they started selling the videotapes to pay for his defense.
Right. Cried persecution, the whole bit.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Obvious it's such a blatant and horrible example of,
violation of
church-state separation, exactly, mm-hmm. that they said, okay, no, we're going to have this thing removed, and him along with it. So him and The Rock went, kicking and screaming the entire way. He appealed to a couple Supreme Courts, and a stand-in Supreme Court on Friday unanimously rejected Roy Moore's bid to be reinstated as Alabama's Chief Justice, the latest legal chapter in a saga surrounding his fight to keep a Ten Commandments monument, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, he didn't go away kicking and... he went away kicking and screaming.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every possible way that he could try to get his job back, he was trying to do.
Exactly, because they said that, look, you've...
At the same time claiming to be a martyr.
You have refused orders to take this down, so we're going to take you out. And they basically wheeled him off, and his monument along with it, and he went screaming.
He was taken down because he violated the laws of that state, which is...
There were higher laws...
What he was specifically, his office was meant to uphold.
Higher laws and decisions were passed down saying, no, this can't stand, take it down, and he said, bite me. And so they did. Okay. Anyway, that's it for the show.
We are
live on Sundays And again, if you want to come down, any atheist-friendly people, we have weekly meeting at Crescent City Beignets, which is on 6th Street, a couple blocks west of Lamar. We meet there at 11:30, and it's just atheists sitting around chit-chatting, talking about whatever comes up of the day. It's a great time. Anyway, thank everybody for watching. It's been another great show. Thank you, Don, for being our co-host.
My pleasure.
And we will see you next week.